So, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, is the latest installment to the Mad Max franchise, this one not only being a spin-off, but a prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, and like the previous installments, Furiosa was once again directed by George Miller. This film tells a story of, you guessed too, Furiosa, who is not only played by Anna Taylor-Joy, but also Alila Brown. Before I continue with my review, welcome to my channel, everybody. For those of you who are coming to my channel for the very first time, be sure to hit the subscribe button to not only miss a future video, whether it's a future review or reaction, but join me on my journey to 10K subscribers and beyond, because I have a lot of stuff coming your way in the future. And for those who are coming back to my channel, welcome back. I am so happy to see your faces once again. And also really quick, start a conversation below. Are you excited to see Furiosa, a Mad Max saga? Or even better, I know I asked this in my review of The Road Warrior, but what is your favorite film of the Mad Max saga? Alrighty guys, so let's get into Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
Excellent!
Wow! This was a movie that originally, and this might blow your mind guys, Furiosa for me wasn't originally in my top 5 most anticipated movies of the year, but I will say in terms of summer movies this year, this was in my top 3. I am a massive fan of the Mad Max franchise. As y'all can imagine guys, when I heard that they were going to be making a prequel, but also a spin-off to Fury Road that would be focusing on the Furiosa character who in Fury Road was portrayed by, Charlize Theron, I was very, very excited, especially knowing that George Miller was once again directing. Walking into my screen of this movie, to say I was hyped was an absolute understatement, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, on the way down to my screening, I may have been blasting the Fury Road score, which, by the way, really quick, one of the best action film scores ever. I am just saying, yes, the vinyl record is badass. Going into this movie, I wasn't expecting this movie to be better than Fury Road because, like I mentioned to you guys earlier, Fury Road to me is a masterpiece of an action film. It's one of the best action films, period. So going to this movie, I was not going to my mindset of this has to be better than Fury Road. All that I wanted out of this movie was a kick-ass prequel to Mad Max Fury Road. And you know what I got out of this movie? A kick-ass action prequel that sure does have a gripe. It has its defects, as I would say, but regardless, Furiosa is badass and is one hell of a prequel and a terrific companion piece to Fury Road. Every performance in Furiosa is terrific, but I'm going to focus on 3 performances in particular. The first performance that I must talk about, and I hope that a lot of reviewers talk about her because she was terrific, and that is Alila Brown, to which I do apologize if I butcher her name, who portrays a younger Furiosa, who really does occupy a great deal of screen time. Alila Brown doesn't really have a lot of dialogue. I mean, she has some dialogue, but it's really kept to a bare minimum, and she does, by the way, a great job of carrying a great majority of Furiosa. There is a lot required of her, knowing especially what goes on with her character, with this portrayal and this age of Furiosa, and what she does in this movie I thought was absolutely brilliant. I can't wait to see where she goes in her career. Anya Taylor-Joy is terrific in this movie, and I'm not saying that because I love Anya Taylor-Joy. She is my favorite actress working today in Hollywood besides a bunch of other people out there. But like Tom Hardy in Fury Road, Anya Taylor-Joy doesn't have a lot of dialogue in Furiosa, but I will say this much. When she does have dialogue, she uses that dialogue and her delivery of that dialogue from maximum impact, and holy crap does she have some great moments with the dialogue. She really does a great job of encapsulating and just overall embodying what Charlize Theron did for Furiosa in Mad Max Fury Road. One of the biggest stars of this movie was Chris Hemsworth as Demetrius, or I think that's how I pronounce his character's name in Furiosa, but regardless, Chris Hemsworth, at least in my personal opinion, gives one of the most bombastic and one of the craziest performances of his career in this film. Many people have been saying that he is having a blast in this movie, but really, to say he is having a blast in this movie is such an understatement. You can tell throughout the entire time that you're watching Chris Hemsworth that he is having the time of his life playing this character, and man, does he own it is absolutely brilliant, and I could not get enough of how just over the top, how bombastic, how crazy he was, and just how theatrical he was in this movie. One of the things that I must gush about is George Miller's directing. This man is 79, and the fact that he can still make these kinetic, visceral action films at this age proves of how great and skilled a filmmaker that he is. There is one particular thing that I absolutely love the way that George Miller told the story this time around, and this is the only real time that I'm going to compare, well, maybe a few other times, but still, this is one of the bigger comparisons that I'll make with Furiosa and Fury Road. This is the best way that I could describe Fury Road with Furiosa. Fury Road is essentially like a Nissan Skyline. That thing is just going and going at the highest speed possible. Furiosa, on the other hand, is like a Dodge Charger but with a defect to it. And while that defect doesn't really ruin the movie really whatsoever, minus one little gripe, that Dodge Charger is still a supercharged car that will give you one hell of an experience. And the way that George Miller not only directs the action, but the storytelling around as well, I was really into this movie, guys. And speaking of which, guys, while Furiosa does have that kick-ass action that you know from a Mad Max movie, there is one particular thing that Furiosa does very well that I wasn't expecting. Furiosa is a movie that covers 15 years of storytelling, but telling the origin of Furiosa's story. And originally at first, I didn't know how I was going to feel about that, but I gotta tell you guys, for a movie that, by the way, that's almost 2.5 hours long, I didn't feel it whatsoever. Are there some people that might feel the runtime? Sure, but for me personally, there's a certain point in the movie, honestly even 10 minutes in, that I was completely sucked in. If there's one thing that I absolutely loved about Furiosa, it's the fact that this movie does take a lot of time, and it takes its time really, and not only telling a really cool narrative story, but also not to mention it as well, it is a movie that goes into the lore of the wasteland, seeing the amazing world building, and seeing where the stuff in the wasteland coming from. There were bits this movie in which I didn't expect it would go over, and I'm happy as hell that I did. And I was so invested by the way in certain bits that I wanted more of the storytelling. That is how great the storytelling of Furiosa is. There's one specific thing that I know you guys are waiting for me to talk about, and that is the action sequences in Furiosa. The action in Furiosa is kinetic, it's hard-hitting, it's visceral, and my god, you feel those hits. There was a specific part, oh my god, I had this reaction. Oh! And once again, I have to really praise the stunt work here, because the stunt work here, especially when one mechanic is in use, oh my god, I just went, wow. The cinematography in Furiosa is beautiful, it's colorful, it's epic. Simon Dugan's cinematography here is just absolutely, just to say the least, epic. There are so many shots in this movie where I was completely blown away by how George Miller and Simon Dugan worked together in creating just not only kinetic action sequences, but just beautiful world building and lore building in itself. If I were to mention one more star of this movie, that is the sound design. The sound design in Furiosa is just, it's an eargasm. That's the best way I can describe it. Hearing the sounds of those engines roaring and revving, and as all the action sequences were going down, see this movie in an IMAX theater or just with the loudest speakers possible, because man, the sound design in this movie is really the next star of this movie, because the sound design is absolutely incredible.
Well, that's just fucking great!
There is only one issue that I have with this movie, and sure, it's not a big issue with this movie that I have, but it is an issue that does hold it back just a smidge. There are some shots where the CG is very noticeable, and there are a couple of times where those CG shots did take me out. Like, there are epic moments in this movie, I mean epic as hell moments, and then it goes to a CG shot where it doesn't really look that good. There are quite a few shots in this movie where the CG is really noticeable.
And
So overall, while it is no Fury Road, Furiosa is big, loud, and epic. It's a supercharged beast, and it's an odyssey of a movie. All in all, I'm gonna give Furiosa a Mad Max Saga a 4.75 out of 5. Furiosa a Mad Max Saga is a kick-ass time of the theaters. Go in, and especially in IMAX, and get ready to have a badass time. I hope you enjoyed my review of Furiosa a Mad Max Saga. If so, please hit that like button, or if you dislike the video, hit the dislike button. If you guys want to see my previous 2 reviews, please click it right there or right there. And of course, until my next review or video goes live, I will see you all next time.